What's up, Taiwan? I'm Joyce coming to you from Taipei with the latest news. Hundreds of people have marched through New York City to campaign for Taiwan to be officially recognized by the United Nations.
Taiwan is Taiwan!
Taiwan is a country!
Taiwan is a country!
During the march, protesters handed out flyers explaining Taiwan's exclusion from the international body. The United Nations stopped recognizing the government in Taipei in 1971 in favor of Beijing. This year's protest coincided with the 79th UN General Assembly being held in the city. One theme of this year's event is, quote, "Leave no one behind." Members of the Free Tibet movement were also at the protest, as well as lawmakers from across Taiwan's political spectrum.
在加入联合国这一件事情，我觉得应该是大家一起集体的共识啦。那基本上就是希望说，怎么样能够让台湾参与公共事务，来为台湾人民得到最多的福祉。其实我想是大家共同的理念啦。
就是内部各政党有自己的立场嘛，那会有不同的论述，但是对外我觉得大家就是团结一致，就展现团结的力量，然后一起对外争取对我们最有利的那个局势，这样才是对。
Taiwan's Marines have returned to a Taiwan-governed island in the South China Sea. That's according to an unnamed military source in local media. The country's Coast Guard has been operating on Pratas Island since the year 2000, but a Liberty Times report says Taiwan's Marines have been upping their presence there in light of China's increasing aggression in the region. The island sits in the South China Sea, where several countries have competing sovereignty claims. China claims nearly all of the sea as its own, despite having no legal basis. The military source says the addition of Marines on the island would mean advanced anti-air and anti-armor systems would also be deployed. A district court has ordered detention for a Chinese man that illegally crossed the Taiwan Strait into Taiwan's waters. The court says the 30-year-old man, surnamed Wang, violated immigration law. He is now being held incommunicado. Wang used a rubber dinghy to cross from China to New Taipei City. He says he left China to escape his debts and wanted to start a new life in Taiwan. In June, another Chinese man reached the waters near New Taipei's northern Danshui district on a speedboat. Both incidents have raised security concerns among officials. China might have a secret motive for its air and sea incursions near Taiwan. A new report from Washington-based think tank the Heritage Foundation says Beijing is practicing how to capture territory in a potential war with Taiwan. Such air incursions are part of China's gray zone tactics to put pressure on the country. And to find out more, Jaime Ocon spoke to the report's author, Brent Sadler.
Brent, I want to first start off by asking you, what kind of gray zone activities are we seeing around Taiwan and around Japan?
Two big things. One, there is this family of types of operations that people have called gray zone operations. It's not one type. It's actually several varieties of activities, and it's always changing. But if you look at it, we're in another phase of, I think, a significant change the way the Chinese maritime forces operate and behave. The other is this positional advantage thing, and it's very tactical in one level, but when you step back, it's all about position for a potential fight in the next war in Asia.
And is this a new thing? Are these kinds of gray zone activities just starting to take place, or have we known about this for a while?
About 20 years ago, they started to pick up the activities in the East China Sea. They thought they got to an understanding with the Japanese that was beneficial to them, 2007, 2008. They start to change the terms of the deal of co-development. You see large fishing fleets, aircraft intrusions, and it reaches a crisis. And then we're at a very tense but static kind of standoff since about 2012, 2013 in the East China Sea. And you see a very similar, not exact, similar kind of trajectory or pattern of behavior that's played out, and we're reaching a culminating, I guess, climax of about 10 years of activities in the South China Sea. And the big question is, where next?
And for Taiwan, what can it do to manage these kinds of threats? Should it take an approach like the Philippines and document everything on the media, or maybe like Japan and continue scrambling fighters to warn off these Chinese planes?
Taiwan is somewhere in between on both fronts. One, they are responding militarily as best they can. They have to keep that up. They need to do better. And they need to find probably new ways, like using drones rather than sending up manned aircraft. I know this is a hot topic in Taipei. The other is starting to maybe go in offense in other ways, not like fly into Chinese airspace necessarily, but challenging assumptions in Beijing that Taiwan will only be reactive and only focused in on the Taiwan Strait. And I'll leave that there. The other is the information campaign. They could also be exposing Chinese fishing fleets that are escorted by Chinese Coast Guard and maritime militia and putting that out. So there are things that they too can do, not just in the Chinese press, but in multiple languages.
That was Brent Sadler, Senior Research Fellow at the Heritage Foundation based in Washington, D.C. Storm Boris has brought torrential rains to Central Europe, killing at least 4 people in Romania. Several other countries in the region continue to battle severe flooding and have launched rescue operations. Slovakia's capital has declared a state of emergency. In Poland and the Czech Republic, authorities and residents are bracing for more floods as rivers swell, some to 50-year highs. Thousands have been forced to evacuate. In Myanmar, more than 230,000 people have been forced from their homes as floods and landslides wreak havoc across the country. The cause of the destruction, Typhoon Yagi, is the most powerful storm to hit Asia this year, battering the Philippines and China and killing over 260 people in Vietnam. Looking over their city, submerged in water, residents in Taungu, Myanmar, join over 200,000 others in the country, fleeing in search of higher ground after deadly floods and landslides brought on by Typhoon Yagi. With thousands stranded, Myanmar's junta chief has made a rare request for foreign aid to cope with the effects of one of Asia's deadliest storms this year. Local authorities say at least 33 people have died, but U.S.-backed Radio Free Asia says that number could be higher than 160. The Southeast Asian country has been marred by 3 years of civil war, barring many aid agencies, including the Red Cross, from reaching the over 18 million people who the United Nations says need humanitarian assistance. During last year's Cyclone Mocha, which killed at least 140 people, the military government blocked aid groups from accessing devastated areas. Now, in the wake of Typhoon Yagi, people have been fleeing by any means necessary, including by elephant. The floods have piled onto an already dire situation for people in Myanmar, leaving some with little to hold on to. So far, no comments from the UN Office for Humanitarian Affairs Coordination in Myanmar or the Red Cross on the junta's request for help. Meanwhile, people are scrambling to find safety any way they can. Howard Zhang and Joyce Tseng for TaiwanPlus. Every year, around mid-September to early October, people across Asia celebrate MidAutumn Festival. Traditionally, families gather to admire the full moon and eat mooncakes. In the past few decades, a new form of celebration has become the norm in Taiwan, a good old outdoor barbecue. Wesley Lewis went to Taoyuan City in the north to check out one of the biggest cookouts in the country.
Over 1,000 people are here in the northern city of Taoyuan to celebrate MidAutumn Festival, a holiday that marks the harvest moon. Every year, families across the country gather to partake in a holiday tradition unique to Taiwan, outdoor barbecuing. Here, people have converged despite the rain for this massive community event, that includes karaoke, a moonlit performance, and a holiday market. But the main draw tonight is the chance to come together and grill up some fresh food.
今年是第一次在跟这么多朋友一起烤肉，还蛮不错的体验。
很热闹，虽然外面下着雨，但是大家就是还是烤得很开心。
Actually, I was a little worried about the weather, but they seem to have handled it well, and we were able to barbecue and have a good time with it.
The custom only began in the 80s when two competing condiment companies started marketing their sauces for Mid-Autumn Festival barbecues, and the trend caught on. But in recent years, there have been fewer people partaking in this outdoor holiday tradition, as more people choose to celebrate indoors, at restaurants, and in homes.
有很多的朋友家庭事实上也喜欢选择在餐厅去聚会啊，不用自己烤肉啊，哈，比较也感觉这些料理也都非常的好哈。但是就是自己动手烤，毕竟那个感觉不一样哈。
To bring in more people, organizers are also giving away free pomelos, a symbol for blessings, to the first 200 attendees who check in on their phone. Even though Mid-Autumn Festival barbecues have only been popular in Taiwan for a few decades, they have already become a distinct part of the country's holiday culture. And it's a custom that organizers of this event are determined to preserve. John Su, Millie Hughes, and Wesley Lewis in Taoyuan for TaiwanPlus.
Vegans and vegetarians in Taiwan also celebrate Mid-Autumn Festival. Wesley Lewis went to find them at the event in Taoyuan to see how they're adjusting holiday conventions to suit their diets.
Fire up the grill. It's Mid-Autumn Festival in Taiwan. Families across the country celebrate the holiday by gathering with loved ones around outdoor barbecues. It's usually a meat-centered holiday, but vegans and vegetarians take part too.
今天吃了4季豆，然后还在等。
The barbecuing custom started nearly 3 decades ago when two competing condiment companies started marketing their sauces for Mid-Autumn Festival barbecues. During the holiday, many vegetarians celebrate alongside non-vegetarians and just wait for their turn at the grill.
就是你要等吃肉的人都把肉烤完之后才会换烤菜。
In recent years, fewer people in Taiwan have been celebrating with outdoor barbecues, instead opting for restaurants. But some vegetarians say barbecue restaurants have not done enough to offer menu options for them.
In Taiwan, if you go to a obviously meat-based restaurant, they would flat out refuse you and not serve you and say, well, if you can stay, but we only have maybe like onions, or maybe we only have, some type of condiments that's not even a proper, dish.
Mooncakes are another traditional delicacy during Mid-Autumn Festival. They often contain eggs, making them non-vegan. But some companies have been adjusting their recipes to cater to more people.
I think the biggest thing that has changed recently is the availability of mooncakes that are vegan friendly. So in the past, vegetarian is always a much easier thing to do with pastries, but vegan is very difficult. When you take away the butter, the milk, the eggs, then it's like, how do you make an egg yolk pastry vegan, right? And actually a lot of the bakeries have come up with really genius fillings like sweet potato.
Although Mid-Autumn Festival is often associated with grilled meat and egg-based desserts, vegans and vegetarians continue to put their own twist on holiday foods. And since the overarching theme of the holiday is community, it makes the small adjustments to long-standing customs seem all the more worthwhile. John Su, Shu, and Wesley Lewis for TaiwanPlus.
More than 22,000 people have taken to the water in Taiwan's annual Sun Moon Lake Swim, setting a new participation record for the event. The swim has been held every year since 1983, with participants of nearly all ages and backgrounds swimming roughly 3,000 meters across the country's largest lake. Taiwan's 74-year-old former President Ma Ying-jeou completed his 11th consecutive swim this year and claims he has no plans to stop, despite the event having an upper age limit of 75.
还会来吗？明年？明年来。帮我比个赞号。出发不办。
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally, have you ever seen a pumpkin as heavy as a bull? This giant crushed the previous record in Russia, tipping the scales at 817 kilograms. I'm Joyce, and take care and see you next time.